story, true soul, about a man who sold himself piece by piece.
What breaks a person? What makes someone betray their beliefs and moral code to cast the whole world into oblivion? Does a great tragedy, like the death of loved ones, justify innumerable acts of cruelty, even if it's for the sole reason of bringing those loved ones back? Even if they don't recognize you when they come back, even if they despise what you've become? These are the questions that I ask myself when I think about Ketheric Thorm, one of the big bad 3 antagonists of Baldur's Gate 3, and the main antagonist for Act 2 of the game. So let's explore what made a man like this the way he is. And of course, heavy spoilers for Act 2 of the game. But before we go any further, be welcome, this is the Roll Crow, and on this channel we explore the life of my favorite characters from my favorite RPGs. So if this sounds interesting to you at all, then stick around, and of course, thank you for watching. So when we start our adventure, we don't have a clear antagonist, other than the Lovecraftian squid heads that infected our heads. So we spend the beginning of our game between looking for a cure to our affliction, to seeing which companion has the most combat potential. However, there is something that remains a constant in the background if you pay enough attention, and that is the name Ketheric Thorm.
Rest, little one, but do not take long. I feel his shadow. I heard his name whispered. The rock shivers from the sound. The Ketheric Thorm.
So you build this idea of the man in your head in Act 1, and then you get to Act 2 and see everything is in shambles. The land is subject to a terrible curse, and the people you can talk to, they point to one man.
General Ketheric Thorm. Remember that name. He's the leader of the Absolutists.
So we travel to Moonrise Towers to infiltrate the Absolute forces and meet the man. You are greeted by a merciless, immortal being that punishes servants severely and gets impaled by a halberd. However, during all this show he seems emotionless, broken. He does not seem to take much pleasure from this, he just seems bored, as he is just doing the absolute work because he just does not care anymore about anything. Well, what if I told you he was not always like this? In fact, he was the complete opposite, a good and decent charismatic man that brought hope to the hearts of his followers, and was a devoted follower of the goddess Selûne. Well, let's see what makes a man like this stare at the abyss. You see, Ketheric once lived on a town called Wraithwind. His fortress was called the Moonrise Towers, a massive structure constructed as an offering to the moon goddess Selûne. He had a beautiful family. The Thorms had been faithful servants of Selûne for generations. One day, sadly, his wife Melodia got sick. He had a terminal illness and eventually passed away. Obviously this hit Ketheric pretty hard. However, he did not break. He made a promise to his wife to keep his daughter Isobel safe and raise her as she would have liked, under the guidance of her goddess Selûne. And he did, until tragedy struck again, and Isobel Thorm was killed. So Ketheric lost all hope and turned his back on Selûne, and accepted SHAR's embrace, the Night Singer. Now this is the basis of the story, and granted, Larian did let a lot of it quite vague for us to fill up the pieces. So before we get into Ketheric's life under the service of SHAR, we need to understand the relation between the Moon Goddess and the Mistress of the Night. You see, SHAR and Selûne were born at the beginning of time. They forged the planet together, albeit Toril, and Shantea, the mother of life, sprung into existence, light and dark hung in perfect balance. However, Shantea felt their creations were cold and distant, so she prayed for warmth. This divided the sisters, driving them to conflict, but it was Selûne who brought warmth to the world, sparking up the sun. SHAR felt betrayed by this, forced to war against both the light of the sun and moon, so the goddess's eternal conflict began. You see, they fight over their worshippers, like two sisters fighting over a doll. Now, grief is an interesting feeling. If you have experienced it at all in your life, you know that it can distort your perception of reality. It can make you spiteful and wanting to bring the whole world down with you. And by the way, you can understand Ketheric's frustration here. Without getting into anyone's beliefs in the real world, in this fictitious universe, there are several gods and they are all confirmed to be real. You can talk to them directly. Hell, you can even...
Oh yes. Nice.
So you will understand how a man that dedicates his whole life to his goddess will be like, what the hell, man, I thought you had my back. However, and this is speculation on my part, based on the relation between SHAR and Selûne, we can surmise that there is a real possibility that SHAR orchestrated the downfall of the Thorm family, Isobel's murder, and possibly even Melodia's affliction. I mean, we have the example of Shadowheart questline to back this up, and we can also surmise that Selûne did try in some way to help Ketheric. I believe that Selûne sent her own daughter, Dame Ailyn, to Raigwyn to appease the hearts of the Thorms after Ketheric's wife dead, and while Isobel found love and peace on the Asimar's presence, Ketheric never really trusted her. In fact, he resented Ailyn even more because she was taking his daughter's affection. Like I said, grief can distort reality. This makes me believe, after his wife's death, Ketheric already resented Selûne, or at least questioned her, and he kept appearances, only to fulfill his promise to his wife. Regardless of what really happened, his daughter's death was the last straw for Ketheric. He forsake his goddess and became a paladin of SHAR. So our main man Ketheric, probably under SHAR's orders and with the help of his new advisor Balthazar, a powerful necromancer, forged a plan to get back at Selûne and obtain immortality for the general.
He and his loathsome advisor Balthazar lured me into the Shadowfell, claimed they'd found someone in need of my aid. There, they trapped me in their infernal cage.
Now I assume that Balthazar was using a different body when this happened, because there is no way Ailyn saw this man and said, yeah, he seems trustworthy. Ketheric starts transforming Raigwyn from Selûne to SHAR's embrace, trading little by little pieces of his humanity and the humanity of the people living there. While under the surface of Moonrise Towers, Ketheric starts the reconstruction on an abandoned temple of SHAR. He creates both the Green Forge and the legendary Adamantine Forge housed within it to prepare his Sharon army for future wars, and the Gauntlet of SHAR to transform his most worthy and devoted followers into Dark Justiciars. And the first encounter the Sharon army has is against the monks of Lathander, the Morning Lord. You see, SHAR's main beef might be with Selûne, however, she also hates other gods, mainly those who bring any sort of light to the world. So Ketheric's army attacks the monks on SHAR's name and steal a holy relic of theirs, the blood of Lathander. But what if, and again, this is complete speculation on my part, Ketheric heard about the blood of Lathander and still hopeful to somehow bring his family back from the dead, he stole the relic, hoping it will help in this cause. After all, some of Lathander's domains are vitality, birth and renewal. But there's no proof of this, it's just a thought. Either way, the monks get the relic back. However, not before one of the Justiciars of SHAR struck the amber case holding the blood of Lathander, damaging the relic, which reacted so violently to his defilement that it exploded on a radiant burst, destroying all the Justiciars around it. The relic was too unstable to move, so this was considered now holy ground to the monks, who then constructed the huge temple we visit in game around the relic. But anyways, back to the Shadowlands. On the surface, Raigwyn starts to become a sort of police state. Selûne worship is forbidden. Dark Justiciars start to prowl the street and forcing people to spy on each other, to tell on everything that their neighbors are doing and report it. All the while, the most loyal to Ketheric start indulging on all sort of debauchery. You can see this on Thorm's distant family. Isobel Thorm, the town's innkeeper, starts drinking heavily, experimenting with poisons to interrogate or eliminate any sort of resistance in town. Malus Thorm, the town surgeon, refuses to treat the wounds of anybody that is not a Dark Justiciar or part of Ketheric's army, while also sadistically torturing town dissidents. Lastly, Kerigonta Thorm, the town's tollkeeper, gets consumed by greed and starts embezzling gold from people wanting to cross the town. This is how I believe the Shadow Curse started taking form. It was not casted, but as the Thorms and the townspeople started to indulge in this debauchery and trading their humanity piece by piece, the influence of SHAR's domain kept growing and infecting the natural order, transforming both the land and its people into grotesque representations of themselves. However, not all citizens gave up to the new order or abandoned the Moon Maiden embrace. Mainly, the innkeeper of Last Light Inn, along with his brother, the head architect of the Stonemasons Guild, continued to secretly worship Selûne, constructed a secret chapel underneath the inn where the last faithful will reunite and pray to the Moon Goddess, and where the seed of the resistance will form. Meanwhile, the authorities of Baldur's Gate will start noticing the change happening in Reikwind, so they started sending Flaming Fist agents to investigate, as well as the Harpers, an organization that fights villainy and wickedness wherever they find it. The Druids of Emerald Grove, with Archdruid Halsin at the head, will also join the investigations, since they could feel the corruption happening on the land, as well as Halsin's connection with the spirit of the land, the Fey boy named Taniel, weakening. The combined forces of all these enemies will be the biggest test to Ketheric Thorm's army yet. Now the forces of the Harpers and the Emerald Grove Druids will see the corruption taking part of the Shadowlands and engage on open war against the forces of Ketheric Thorm. This was a drawn-out conflict that could have gone either way. However, the Harpers and Druids realized that for them to be able to actually defeat Ketheric, they will have to run Reikwind to the ground, where there still were citizens unable to make this move. They decided to present a surrender to the SHAR forces in order to avoid the blood spill of innocent civilians, an offer that was immediately declined by Ketheric. We can see here how little Ketheric cares anymore about anyone. Perhaps it's because he was sure of his victory, but he is ready to sacrifice his entire town to destroy his enemies, and he would have succeeded if it wasn't for the intervention of a certain devil. You see, the head of the Stone Masons Guild knew that the Selûnite resistance was doomed. They had no chance to face a full army of Dark Justiciars led by an immortal being. It's at those moments where your back is against the wall and the last shiver of hope is gone that a certain devil makes you an offer. If we venture into the Stone Masons Guild, we can find a log that tells us that a certain man who was no man, touched by a devil, offered him something he could not refuse: help.
I was an architect in life, a builder of tombs and temples, but mostly of towers. My proudest work reached for the stars and sought to dry Selûne's tears. It was a monument to life and to virtue, and a happy home to my master for many years. A great general, a greater man, Ketheric Thorm. When tragedy came, my master fell into darkness and despair. He marshaled a great army to ruin the world and bring all into shadow. I could not let it happen. I sought out the devil, Raphael, and signed an infernal pact with him. He promised to destroy my master's army, and I promised him my soul in return.
So the head of the Stone Masons is in fact the architect of the Moonrise Towers, and we can see how he used to hold Ketheric on such high esteem. However, as he constructed the seat for Thorm's reign of terror, he also sparked the beginning of the end for his former master. Raphael sent his infernal army, led by the huge Orton Jorgir, to bring the Hell's Heat to the Dark Justiciars below the ground on the Grim Forge, and they were brutally effective, killing every Justiciar that stood in their way. This attack, combined with the Druid and Harper forces on the surface, finally brought down Ketheric Thorm to his knees and his death. This is where it gets confusing. It could be a plot hole, a case of unreliable narrator, or I'm just stupid and missed something.
You stupid!
But Jaheira tells us that Ketheric was in fact killed, confirmed dead, and buried on the Thorm Mausoleum, since we have proof that Ketheric was immortal, since the beginning of his conversion to SHAR when he trapped Dame Ailin on the Balthazar's soul cage. Plus the townfolk of Reikwind already suspected that Ketheric was immortal. We can see it on the journal of Disobald Thorm. So my theory is that Lerian did not plan for Ketheric to be immortal from the beginning. However, he will become immortal after his defeat and being resurrected as a chosen of Miracle and one of the three heads of the Absolute. This will explain what he was doing on the 100-year gap between the service to SHAR to current events. Well, he was doing nothing since he was dead. However, I assume the Depths saw this conflicted with the capture of Dame Ailin and previous events, so they changed this to what we have now. Or maybe I'm stupid and missed something.
You stupid!
Either way, with the information we have, I believe Ketheric knew his defeat was imminent, so instead of revealing the secrets of his immortality in defeat, he decided to play dead and used the following years to rebuild his army and increase the influence of the Shadow Curse in the land. until 100 years later, Myrkul, the god of the dead, will make Ketheric the only offer he was waiting for. His daughter's life returned. In exchange, he will join the chosen of Paul and Bane and lead the cult of the Absolute, so Ketheric gave his body and soul to the god of death without a second thought, so Isabel gets resurrected.
Next I knew, I was being jolted awake. I smelled musty air, I saw shadows. And then my father's face. So changed. So hideously warped. And a monster he'd become. A Mercolite. I didn't know that then. But I could see the change in him. He told me we'd be together now. Said that Aelin was dead. I couldn't speak. Could only run.
I imagine Ketheric was disappointed by this. However, he had a new army, a new purpose. He knew his daughter would come to sense eventually and come back to him. However, he needed to fulfill the will of Myrkul first, and the man did his homework. I mean, he had 100 years to study his enemies, but still, he instigated the Shadow Druid conspiracy on the Emerald Grove and gained a lot of trolls, recruiting goblins, gnolls, duergar, drow, and even orcs to his cause, both willingly and by force. Now he surely was unstoppable, with his new game powers and new, stronger army. Being immortal, and only a small pocket of resistance from the Harpers, the Flaming Fist, and a single cleric of Selûne on the last lie-in, it was just a matter of time for him to retake his daughter and spread the influence of the Absolute to Baldur's Gate. That is until a certain group of adventurers, rogue true souls, joined the fight. So obviously there are different approaches you can take on Act 2. However, there are a couple of things that don't change. Ketheric will try to get his daughter back from Last Light Inn, and he will try to retrieve Dame Aelin from her prison in the Shadowfell. You see, SHAR is not what you will call benevolent, so Ketheric forsaking her for Myrkul will not sit well with her, putting it mildly. So she denies entrance to the Shadowfell to Ketheric and his servants, which allows us to get into her realm first, and either kill or free Dame Aelin, finally making the general mortal again.
What have you done to me?
We do a little trolling, it's called we do a little trolling.
So now we can confront him, and you actually can try to persuade him to repent and give himself back to Selûne. I like this option exists. It shows us the humanity of Ketheric, thinking about his past and how disappointed his wife will be of him. However, I am glad that he does not actually repent, because he knows that he's not coming back from what he's become.
If Melodia could see all I've done, she'd know. She'd know her husband died long ago with Isabel. Unlike Isabel, he could not be brought back.
Either way, we follow him and defeat the man and an avatar of his god Myrkul in combat. We get one last interaction with the man where we see him completely broken, and the last thing he says is,
Isabel.
So we have to wonder, with all that we have seen on this video, what was the end goal of Ketheric Thorm? I mean, we know that he had to lead the Absolute in the name of Myrkul, but what was his personal goal? What did he do all this for? You see, we can find a letter on his chambers, thanking his advisor Balthazar for returning his daughter and hoping that after this, a better, different life awaited him. However, we know his daughter will never join him willingly, especially if she found out what he did to his love. So we can surmise that eventually, Ketheric will force her to join him, probably even infecting her with a tadpole to control her. We can even kind of confirm this, because if Isabel gets kidnapped on the fight on the Last Light Inn, by the end, when you confront Ketheric, Isabel will be by his side fighting against you, by the side of Myrkul and the Absolute, which is completely out of character. She seems brainwashed, almost as if she had a tadpole on her head. So this was not about his family anymore. It might have been at the beginning, and you might even felt a little empathy for the man. However, he got so distorted by his grief that on a selfish desire, he inflicted the same pain he went through on the entire world, including his own daughter. He got so lost and consumed by his grief that he became a physical anchor for the suffering of the land he once called home, and there is only one way to remove this pain from the world. Thanks so much for watching this video. What are your thoughts on Ketheric Thorm? Did I miss anything? I'm already working on another character video for Baldur's Gate 3, so if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful rest of your day.